Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jason. I'm your watch guy today. Today I am reviewing a watch that is currently live on Kickstarter, and it's actually fully funded already. And that happened pretty quickly. And that happened, I believe, because it is one of the most solid watches that I have seen on Kickstarter in recent times. Now, I reviewed Delos a couple of weeks back, and that was probably the biggest shock that I've had in terms of a Kickstarter prototype because it was so well put together. Now, this one takes a different type of route. This is the Radcliffe Haxel Chronograph. They are a micro brand out of Oxford. Their story came about in lockdown, much like my channel. And they designed this watch out of lockdown. I saw them post a few updates on a couple of Facebook groups that I'm also in, and I was really impressed by it. Looked absolutely gorgeous, but in the back of my mind, I always thought that when it was going to be released, it was going to be much more expensive. But they've actually got this on Kickstarter right now for £249, and I think that's an absolute bargain. So guys, let me turn this camera around and let's get into the review of this Haxel. So this is the aforementioned Haxel from Radcliffe. They're a micro brand operating out of Oxford in England. It's nice to see a brand from England doing something so well made. Now the Haxel, the name Haxel actually comes from a building in Oxford University, I believe. So this is their chronograph, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. You can see that it has some really nice 1970s type of styling to it. And I think they've nailed that really well. They've also put together some really nice specifications in this watch. So first of all, I would like to mention that this is a prototype and it isn't exactly what the finished product will look like. There are some changes that will be made. This is a brushed finish, but they will be switching this to a sandblasted finish. The indices are going to be raised and loomed, which is great because we know we love loom. The aluminium bezel insert is going to be ceramic instead of aluminium, which is a much more premium material for them to use. The R that's engraved on the crown here is going to be a little bit smaller. The watch hands will have a matte finish on them, and the midnight blue colour option will be complemented with yellow highlights. So that's what they're going to change. Obviously, they've listened to reviewers that have already had this watch. They've listened to people that have seen the watch, and they are going to make some changes for the final production, which is great to see because obviously it's nice to see a company that listens to its market. It's the best type of company to be involved with. Now, the diameter of this watch, I actually thought it was going to be much bigger, but this is a 40mm diameter. And lug to lug, it's 47mm, so it's a very wearable watch. Now, it also looks like it's going to be a much thicker watch, but it's actually only 13.8mm, and I reviewed much thicker. Because of that more compact lug size and 40mm diameter, it does look much thicker than what you'd expect it to be. The lugs are 20mm, so you're not going to have any sort of issue switching a band out on this one. So let's get into the prototype itself. It is a stainless steel brushed casing with a really nice sort of bowl effect on the actual casing itself. We have lovely curved lugs which conform to the wrist really nicely. They really do add to the design of the casing. Obviously this whole bowl type of effect is something to behold of itself, but these lugs really do add to it, add to the wearability and add to the look on wrist. They don't intrude on this design of the casing very much. They're sort of out on their own and let this casing do the aesthetic talking for itself. Over here we have piston shaped chronograph pushes. So this is a chronograph watch, as you can see. So this is a Seagull ST19 Movement, and I'm actually a big fan of that movement. That's because you can keep the costs relatively lower than other mechanical chronograph movements, which brings these type of watches into our sort of playground, something that we can still enjoy. I really do love the click on these, how quickly it slots back to that 12 o'clock position. As well as that, we have a very nicely nailed crown, which does have a signed R on the tip of it, which is nice to see. signing their crown. Really nice to use, really easily usable. It is a simple pull out, pushing crown. The ST19 unfortunately is not a hacking movement. I do also kind of like that it stays quite compact to the casing once you pull it out. Now moving to the rear of this watch, we have this display case back and it shows off that really, really decorative ST19 movement. As I say, I'm a big fan of this movement. It's absolutely gorgeous in design. It's very, very decorative and it does the job at a really affordable price. So I think they've really picked the right movement for this. We have some information around the outer of the display case back. Stainless steel 316L, sapphire glass, manual wind, and just down here at the bottom we have prototype 5 of 10. So as I mentioned, this bezel here is a aluminium bezel insert, but that will be changed to a ceramic bezel insert for the production models, which is a good move from Radcliffe, and they haven't changed the pricing to make that move, which is even better. We have a sapphire crystal here, which does have a slight dome effect on it, and it really does add to the effect of the dial. It gives it a little bit more presence, gives it a bit more of a 3D type of effect to it, more of a curvature. So this bezel does have a tachymeter display on it. The 60 is slightly misaligned, but I wouldn't let that worry you because they will fix that in the production models. This is a sapphire crystal. So this casing provides the watch with 100 meters of water resistance, which I think is a really acceptable amount of water resistance for a watch that doesn't have a screw down crown and has these pushes over here. I think they've done well to get to that sort of water resistance. So obviously a real feature of this watch is that dial. It is a sandwich effect dial. These subdials sit lower than the dial itself, which gives a nice 3D effect. And they also have a really nice texture on them, as you can see there, which adds to the design of the watch. It really does add to the dial itself. Now, as I mentioned, the indices will be raised and loomed much better than this one. So that's what you can expect from the production model. I really do like the minute track on the outer edge of this watch. It really gives that racing type of feel to it. And I love that as it gets to the subdials here where it cuts it off, we have an extension of it. I think that's a really nice design as well as being quite functional. Obviously with this being a chronograph and having that chronograph feature, you want to be able to use it correctly, and that allows you to do so. So the subdials really do give it a really nice vintage type of feel, really 1970s feel. Now my sort of feel is that Mark 1 Sirocco type of vibe. That's what I relate this to in my mind. I don't even know if they're the same type of era, but in my head that works together. I think that vintage look is really, really relevant in today's watchmaking market, and I think this really does have a place in our market. I think that's a lovely design and they've nailed it. They've really gone for it and done it well. So the Radcliffe logo is printed at the 12 o'clock with the chronograph printed in orange at the 6. Haxel 10 ATM below that. Obviously Haxel being the model name of this watch, and 10 atmospheres of water resistance, which relates to 100 meters. So this watch is actually available in multiple different colorways. I'll just insert the picture of them here for you. My personal favorite is the Panda dial. I'm really a big fan of that one. I think that's a gorgeous look and it goes with the racing feel, I think, that Panda type of dial. So the first subdial on this watch is the second hand indicator. Obviously this here hand is a chronograph hand. And this subdial here is the minute indicator of our chronograph. So as you can see, the chronograph hand moving really nicely around that dial as it comes to the 1 minute marker. As you see there, the minute marker just slightly moving nice and slowly, nice and elegantly to the 1 minute mark. Now one thing I will mention is that the subdial there does have the wrong amount of indicators for the 5 minute indicator. Obviously you can see there's 5 minute indicators and then the bold black line there. I think they will have fixed that in the production model. I really like the orange accents of the chronograph hands and the subdial hands on this watch. I think it flows really nicely through the design. Stop this here and watch all the hands go back to their 12 o'clock positions. We have a pencil handset for the hour and minutes with loom centers. As I say, these will be matte in finish on the production models, and the loom will be better than what it is on this one. I'm not going to put a loom shot in for this one. That's just because I don't think it represents the finished article. I don't think this prototype will do justice to that production model. Another thing to mention is that this chronograph hand here is going to be centered correctly on the production model. As I say, this is a prototype. It is just a representation of what you will be receiving if you back their Kickstarter campaign. As we move on through to this band, it's a very nice leather band. I actually quite enjoyed wearing it. It's a really easy wear actually. Quick release spring bars on this one. Makes it nice and easy switching this one out. 2 leather keepers, and we have this brushed in finish Radcliffe signed buckle to finish the leather band. So let me get this one on wrist for you to show you a quick little wrist shot. It really fits quite nicely actually. So as I say, very comfortable on wrist. It's a really easy wear, especially with those dimensions. It's a wearable, not too compact, but wearable lug to lug. And as I say, 40mm is perfect for a lot of people, isn't it? So I'm quite happy with this in terms of wearability. And I do think it has a really nice look on wrist, especially with that sort of bowl type of effect to the casing itself, the depth of that casing. I think that's absolutely brilliant, to be honest. So there are a couple of things I would mention as downsides on this watch. I'm just going to whip this off wrist and we'll get into that. So for a lot of people, I've said that I really like how thick this casing is. I do. I think it's a really nice, different type of design to a watch. I don't know if everyone's going to be a fan of that. I don't know if that's going to put some people off because of how thick it is. Obviously, you can't really justify this as a dress watch. It is not really going to fit under a cuff, but I don't think that's how it's intended. So personally, for me, that's a win. For everyone, it might not be. I'd have liked to have seen an applied logo at the 12 o'clock. I think it would have gave the dial a little bit more presence. Finally, I really like this colorway. This reverse panda with the orange accents. I think it's a really nice color option. But unfortunately, it's not going to be a production option. As I mentioned, these are the colorways that you're going to have the option of. And I think they've missed a trick with this one. I think this would have been quite popular. But the other options are kind of pretty too. So I guess I can let them off with that. It would have been nice to have seen this one in full production, however. So guys, that is my review of Radcliffe's Haxel Chronograph. I think it's a really, really gorgeous watch. And I think it's really affordable too, which plays into our sort of our playground. £249 for an originally designed, British designed watch that is packed with a mechanical chronograph. I think that's a really good deal. And I can see why they're so popular on Kickstarter right now. I'll link their Kickstarter in the description if you want to go and back that. I think it's a really good option, especially if you're into this sort of vintage 1970s vibe chronograph type of market. I think it's a really affordable way to get into that. Guys, if you're new around here, please do subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. We're smashing numbers all over the place at the minute, so thank you very much for that. Thank you for watching this video on Radcliffe's Chronograph Haxel. I will see you in the next one.